Hello friends, I have tried to record this video quite a few times, but Roker is causing mild chaos. But we will go again, and if I have to be interrupted, I apologise. It might be a bit stop-start. But what I wanted to come on and talk about was this book, Reclaiming Body Trust. I will include in the description below the details for that book, but I really wanted to come on and just share with you the key things that I've taken away from reading it. One, because I just think it's a brilliant book, but also because I know only too well how in recovery, sometimes you just don't have the mental and emotional bandwidth to be reading anything, let alone something that is long and quite in depth. So I really wanted to come on and just share some snippets because I think that they could be really valuable. So I'll dig straight in. Body trust, according to these authors, is the reclamation of your body, your voice, your story, and yourself. It's a process of coming home, and I absolutely love that. I talk to coachees quite a lot about the fact that although the recovered destination, that place that you're moving towards in recovery, can feel quite far off and distant and new and unusual and scary for that reason, that actually there are huge elements of that place that you know that were actually a birthright. Little you who was born onto this planet didn't judge your body or your hunger. You listened to your signals that your body was sending to you. You voiced your needs. You were trusting of your body. And so actually there is huge elements of the recovered destination that is like going home. And yes, through your suffering and through your recovery journey, you will have gathered up so much learning and strength and resilience and grown in all sorts of amazing ways. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there are elements about your recovery destination that are like coming home. And I really love the fact that they reference that in this book. Now, in the book, they delve into all the different areas of body trust. But they give a list, and I want to run through that. And then what I think I'll do is just pick out a few of those things and tell you a few of the bits that I've particularly taken in those areas I think are most relevant to recovery. So, first of all, body trust is getting out of your head and into your body. It's learning what's come between you and being at home in your body. It's letting go of rigidity and perfectionism. It's about being flexible and compassionate and connected to self. It's grieving. It's looking at and listening to your body with curiosity and kindness. It's rejecting restriction and deprivation. It's stretching the outer edges of your body positivity. It's divesting from social constructs of beauty. It's listening to your body's wisdom, allowing pleasure, joy, and satisfaction. It's knowing that your body's cues can guide you. It's learning your body's cues. It's gratitude for how your body shows up each day. It's joyful, free movement and weight-neutral self-care. It's trusting your body to sort out the weight, its weight. And it's advocating for all bodies. The authors go on to delve into each of those in detail, and they talk about this concept of the natural human desire to take the bridge, but that when you take the bridge, you bypass the amazing and important terrain that is underneath that bridge, the mucky, messy, dirty, hard bit. And that means that when you do that bit, when you go on that journey, it's clunky and bumpy and awkward, but that's okay, and it will get easier. And I love the fact that they talk about how much value there is in that terrain that is under the bridge. And this feels really relevant to eating disorder recovery, in that often there is that very natural desire to want to get to the finish line without having to do the hard stuff, the hard work, to have to sit in the guilt and to walk into the fear and to do the opposite actions and to repeat it and to deal with the messiness of it all. But actually, we do have to recognise that the work is done in that terrain, under the bridge, in the mud, in the slime, in the hard bit. That's where the work is done. And yes, it's hard, but it is so valuable and it's so important. And that by doing that work, you get to the place. Because the truth is, in this context, there just isn't a bridge. The eating disorder might like to try and paint a picture of a bridge. Again, it's all part of that carrot on the end of a stick of recovery. Like, oh, well, if you just do this, then no. The reality is your journey to that place on the other side is by going down and through that mucky, messy terrain. And by doing that, you are learning so much, you are gathering up so much strength, you are growing in so many wonderful ways. And I love the fact that they talk here about the fact that it's okay, that it's messy and bumpy and awkward and difficult, but that it will get easier. They talk about practicing self-compassion. And this is something that we know is really important in recovery, that yes, you do have to be really brutally honest with yourself and quite firm. But also it's important to be kind to yourself and to show yourself compassion. And actually, compassion is really quite central to being able to drive positive change. They talk about tapping into a gentler, more nurturing inner voice, your core self, about speaking to yourself like you would a friend. And they also talk about putting your hand on your heart and saying, how am I doing? What do I need right now? And I think that's really lovely. They also talk about the idea of going for a C, which feels incredibly relevant in recovery. This is that fact that often perfection paralysis can occur, particularly when an undernourished brain has a tendency for rigidity. And so you add that into the mix of the eating disorder mindset, and you end up often with this perfection paralysis, where it's a black and white thinking space, where you're either failing or you're absolutely winning and doing everything perfectly. And it's just not applicable in recovery. We cannot swap the perfectionism of the disorder for perfectionism in recovery. Actually, what we have to do is recognize that recovery is not about being perfect. It's about that messiness, that chaoticness, that kind of doing your best and slipping up and making mistakes, but picking yourself up and dusting yourself off and going again. That is recovery. Recovery happens in the shades of grey. And so I love the fact that they talk about going for a C rather than going for that A. I love the mantra, I am enough, I belong. It's something that I picked up from this book, and I think it's really powerful. They also have a whole section about the topic of divesting from diet culture, and I'll share with you the key actions they talk of. These are reducing / stopping / challenging body checking behaviours, getting rid of the scales, doing a social media cleanup, learning about alternatives to diet culture, like reclaiming body trust, getting rid of tools for restriction, so trackers, food measuring items, diet books, creating yourself a capsule wardrobe that fits your body now, removing yourself from diet culture centered conversations. This is about protecting and promoting the journey that you are on. What are you doing? Just look at this lovely toy. You coming to say hello to people? This is Roka, everyone. Oh, no, she's coming for a cuddle. No, you need to look that way. Boxing up or getting rid of clothes that don't fit. Stretching the edges of body positivity to include and affirm all bodies. And they also talk of doing a body gratitude practice and recommend that actually at the end of every single day you write down 1 or 2 things that your body did to support you in that day. They also say that it can help to pick out 3 of the things off that list and start there. You know, again, this comes back very much to an important element of coaching and recovery work, which is to break things into steps. Often journeys like recovery can feel utterly overwhelming when you look at them in their totality, and that's why it's so important to actually break things down. So how about you pick, what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you coming in to say hello, or are you just being chaos? This is Roka, everyone. Roka being trouble. You're a good girl. She says, I am a good girl, but I'm also a tiny terror. A tiny terror. Who wants to play with her pink flamingo? How about you take 2 or 3 things from that list, and you this week can make it your intention to work on those 3 things, and then you can build from there. They also have in the book this really powerful analogy that refers to the concept of fighting your body. And they talk about it like this idea of What would it be like to try and hold a basketball underwater? And I just found it a really powerful concept. Like, I can really visualize that struggle. You know, how would it be to keep a basketball underwater? And I can like really picture myself trying to push this thing under and it's trying to pop up and that you're fighting it. And they made this connection that that's very much like trying to fight your body, to try and fight the set weight range that your body wants to be at, to try and fight your hunger, to try and fight your body's need for rest. This idea of just the struggle of trying to keep that basketball underwater when it's constantly just wanting to come back up to the surface. And with this imagery in mind, they asked the question, what would it look like to let the ball float? What would that feel like? What would that be like? And I encourage you to maybe go away and think about this. It might be something to explore through journaling or through a conversation with a loved one. Another thing they spoke about was needing to notice thoughts and call them out. I talk about this a lot, but I liked the way that they very simply put it as saying, hello, eating disorder. I see you, eating disorder mindset, and actually saying it out loud to yourself, voicing it. Because it's a really powerful thing. Calling out your eating disorder, labeling those thoughts, asking yourself, who's talking here? And saying, that's eating disorder. And it's one thing to have it up here, but to actually bring it out into the world. And whether that's that there's nobody there to hear it, or whether there is somebody there that you're saying it for accountability to, but voicing it, calling it out. Hello, eating disorder. That's eating disorder. And then it's about applying those opposite actions, and in accompaniment to that, you can also back it up by saying out loud, no thanks, eating disorder. I don't do that anymore. No thanks, eating disorder. I choose recovery. Something that you have voiced the eating disorder, you've called it out, and you are then redirecting your spotlight of attention, not only through your actions, but also through your thoughts. Around the topic of food and eating, they gave some really handy tips, which overlap a lot with the kind of stuff we talk about a lot on this channel around recovery, but I thought I would share them. Firstly, it's about increasing access to food. So making sure you're doing regular shops, making sure that the house is well stocked, making sure that you're carrying snacks with you, and that you're challenging the barriers or the rules that complicate choice. 2, you're actioning your unconditional permission to eat and enjoy food. This means getting curious about where restriction is showing up and applying those opposite actions. It's about walking into the fear and recognizing that healing from deprivation, healing from restriction, healing from starvation is messy and chaotic, and it takes time. And that is something that I'm so pleased that was referenced in this book, because it is a very, very important topic. This recognition that actually healing, recovering is messy. And that's hard. It's really hard. But the truth is that you have to go through that messy middle to be able to come out on the other side. The pendulum has to swing in the other direction in order to be able to come back to your normal. Number 3, challenging the false rhetoric of food addiction. Restriction is the problem and permission is the solution. Number 4, if a plan helps, center it on pleasure, center it on your core recovering self, what you like, what you used to enjoy, and get as specific as is necessary to support you. Number 5, prepping and cooking. Keep it simple. Keep it simple and explore any interest you have in making the things that you want to make. If this means at the moment there is lots and lots of frozen pizzas and frozen meals and ready meals and that kind of stuff, but you recognize that actually you want to do some baking for you, lean into that. Absolutely let things be simple. Do the shop bought ready-made sandwiches. Do the food that's brought over by your family member or a friend because they're there to be able to support you. Embrace every opportunity you have to let things be simple, whether that's through takeaways, whether that's through a support network getting involved, whether that is just by utilising the more convenient options that are available. Whatever it looks like, let things be simple. And where you notice those authentic sparks of wanting to try and make something, lean into those as well. Number 6, stop things aimed to silence your hunger. So this is gum. This is fizzy diet drinks. This is skipping breakfast, not eating till later on in the day. Drinking lots of fluids, full stop. Can also be filling up on low energy dense, high volume food. So lots of fruits and lots of vegetables. All of these things come into that category of behaviors that are designed to blunt or silence hunger, and they are incompatible with building trust with your body and also very much incompatible with recovery. Next one is working to see hunger as a welcome sign of your body talking to you. And the final one is challenging binary food labels. So as I say, lots of things there that very much overlap with recovery. Now I'm going to move on to a bit where they talk about rediscovering and embodying and allowing pleasure as part of reclaiming body trust. They talk about pursuing being satisfied by food choices. And this is really important, that actually recovery is not about fullness. It's about that really being fully satisfied. They talk about exploring what lights you up. They talk about recognizing what turns you off. They talk about prioritizing joy and fun and play and pleasure. And they talk about challenging guilt that may come up around this, connecting with your body story. They talk about the fact that pleasure is a birthright, and that actually that guilt around doing things that you like, about leaning into pleasure, where is that coming from? Where has that been learnt from? Who's talking in that? And the value of exploring that. They also talk about what body trust movement is. They say it's about being for and with your body, not to and on. They say it's about pleasure and joy, about weight neutrality. They say it's about noticing how the movement feels, and it's not for compensation or punishment. They say that it very much includes days off and rest. It includes flexibility, and it's not ruled by trackers. And to summarise, they say that reclaiming body trust is an evolving process that is multifaceted and non-linear. And they talk a lot about the importance of being kind to your courageous, healing self. They talk about the process of exploring your body story, seeing your patterns for coping, grieving what needs to be grieved, divesting from diet culture and disorder, allowing for pleasure and satisfaction and contentment, meeting needs and setting boundaries, and letting yourself heal in your way, at your pace, creating space for the fact that it takes the time that it takes, and that yes, you do have to be intentional and proactive, but that actually there is a huge value of knowing that it is okay, that it is not something that's just happening overnight, that healing does take time, and that that is all right. So that brings me to the end of this video. I hope that it has been helpful. I hope that you are able to take something from my sharing today. As I say, if you're interested in reading the book yourself, I will link the information in the description below. And otherwise, I'd love to hear in the comments below the things that really stood out for you from what I've shared, from the stuff that stood out for me in this book. Does that make sense? I'm sure you know what I mean. Anyway, I hope that wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you are having a lovely day, and I will speak to you very soon.